The world needs to see our struggle for this goal of oneness. I want to close our prayer with this comment, because this is a little bit what Sister Chinyeaka tries to communicate with us through her book. For her, a sister coming from a country of Africa with another nationality in Europe, she's able through the book to let us understand how interculturality, it might be a witness for religious life, it might be a blessing for religious life. Your book, Sister Chinyeaka, has a flavor that reminds me the Laudato Si of Pope Francis. And at the same time, the important document, New Wine in the New Wineskins, because there one of the challenge for the current religious life is interculturality, international and intercultural communities. For you, interculturality is a blessing, but at the same time, you are aware of the human limits towards diversity. As you write, quoting the Harvard researcher, people's reaction to diversity is not positive, is not so natural. So, Sister Chinyeaka, I have the first question for you that is more at the personal level. You have two nationalities. You've grown up in a country with 250 different tribes. You grown up in a big family. So I have the impression that you learn by nature to be intercultural. Can you say something about how all this background has affected your interest for this issue?
Thank you, Patricia. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, sister, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Patricia. Before I answer your question, I want to say hello to everyone and to thank you for joining us despite the present challenges now. I think this is coming at the right time so that we all can be in solidarity with each other as we reflect together. So thank you for being here and thank you for having me too. So coming to your question, Patricia, yes, I come from a country like some people say there are actually more than 250 different ethnic groups. These were just the ones that they can be counted. So I grew up in this context, and as I mentioned in my book, from elementary school, I had the opportunity of studying and interacting and playing with kids from very different backgrounds and ethnic groups in Nigeria and beyond. And also we had the Filipino children whose parents were teachers. So from that early stage, I had that opportunity and the privilege of functioning in intercultural setting. It was challenging and at the same time fascinating for me. There were children that I had to learn how to pronounce their names correctly. So this early experience, I would say, marked my life in a very tremendous way. And then there was also my father, my dad, that always spoke about the Irish missionaries. He always spoke about the selflessness of Irish missionaries who treated my people and lived among our people as our own, and also looked after the people during the Civil War. He always said, no greater love than this, whenever he thought about Irish missionaries. So all that were in the mix in my experience growing up of interculturality at different levels. So also in the university, when I grew up, I was 17 years old, and I chose to go to a university to a different part of the country where I had the opportunity to mix with people from different ethnic backgrounds in the country as well. So how this affected my background and my choices in life, as I noted in the book as well, when I got the call to religious life, what attracted me most was
Yeah. Sorry, sister, we have a problem. Florence?
yes, I'm hearing her voice. I'm hearing Florence.
Yeah. We are hearing the translator.
Gabriela. Yes, I'm hearing Gabriela.
Florence? I can't see you. Florence?
No, I didn't understand. I understand for tomorrow.
Sei tu Lucia?
Okay.
Che ti chiami Lucia?
So please, the participants, do not switch it on the microphone because otherwise we listen everything. So, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
We will try to go on. I don't know if...
okay, let's...
Gabriela, you are in the Spanish, right? In the Italian, let's say. Okay, so I don't know why we hear the second voice. Okay, we will try. Florence disappeared, so I hope she will come back. Florence? Okay, sister, go ahead.
Okay, we try again. So I grew up with that awareness of being attentive to other people who were different from me. As I said, even some kids, I had to learn how to pronounce their names correctly. So I grew up with that awareness, and that also influenced my choices later on in life. And choosing the congregation, the Missionary Sisters of the Holy Rosary, which is also intercultural in its composition and in its practices and policies. So what I learned from the whole experience is that the world, coming from a particular cultural group, I learned early in life that the world was bigger than where I came from. And there are other cultures other than mine where I belong, and learning to accept and live harmoniously with all those people. And also it's quite striking for me that God is a God that loves variety, the variety in life. So many different kinds of people with different languages and the ways of seeing life, the ways of celebrating life and all whatnot. It made me also realize that God loves variety and there's beauty in variety in God's creation. And also it helped broaden my vision of life, to also know that other people have other ways of being and are all equally beloved and loved by God as I am loved too. Then finally, it is a lesson for me that it's possible to coexist harmoniously despite the struggles, I would say. Sometimes, we made fun or laugh at each other as kids because of the differences. But in all, I learned that it's possible to really coexist in that beauty and variety that God has created. Thank you.
Sister Chinyeaka, I'm
Yes.
sorry, I was trying to connect with Florence, but I listened to you.
Okay.
The second question is always at the personal level, and I was thinking about your congregational experience. I mean,
okay.
Did you experience resistance, obstacle? I don't want to use the word racism, but you experienced a difficulty in integrating as a Nigerian sister in your congregation, founded not in your country, but in Europe.
Okay. Thank you for the question. I think maybe I will start by saying that right from my initial formation, when I entered as a postulant, we were from different cultural backgrounds. We were 11 girls, young women, from about 5 different cultural groups or ethnicity. So that experience coming into the congregation, I was introduced into that. So right from the beginning, I knew it was part of our life. And also as a novice, I spent 3 months in Kenya, East Africa, for experience, missionary experience, as well as intercultural community living in one of our communities with sisters from different cultures. And subsequently, after profession, I went on mission to Sierra Leone. I was in Sierra Leone during the troubled times there, as well as Cameroon on mission. All these form part of my experience of intercultural life in my congregation. So I would say that from beginning, we are introduced to interculturality, knowing that this is what we are going to live all through our lives. And I would like to add also that in my congregation, from our origins, the first 10 sisters, our first 10, they were 9 Irish and 1 from the United States. 1 came all the way from America, Philadelphia to be precise. So despite that fact that at a time in our congregation, I would say that from the beginning, they were mostly Irish, but around 1969, during the special general chapter, our congregation came together to say, declare, and make it official that we are an international congregation. This is in a document. And 9 years later, in 1978, during another general chapter, the congregation officially declared itself intercultural and put it in writing. And then from there, policies in the congregation or whatever we are doing, this value of inclusivity is always, we always strive to incorporate that value in whatever we are doing in our decisions and in our deliberations and plans for the congregation. So having said this, having said all this, I will say that any group that is together seeking to live and function harmoniously, there's always a struggle. So I wouldn't say that it's because we have declared or we did early in life to declare that we're intercultural congregation that we didn't have our struggles. We had, and we still have our struggles. But what I find there that is most helpful is that decision to come together and officially and consciously declare ourselves intercultural. So that is a commitment we made that always challenges us and makes us to always seek in whatever we are doing in our congregation to maintain that value of interculturality, be it in formation, be it in community formation and community living, or other aspects of the life of the congregation. So I would say that, from the quotation there we had in the book, the research by the Harvard scholar, that human beings always find it difficult it's easier for us to relate with our own and be with our own. And we usually experience anxiety or tension when we need to adjust to accommodate other people or to function with other people. So this is a true struggle. It is there, but because of our commitment, we always bear in mind that we struggle. And I'm really proud to say that more than 40 years ago, our congregation made this commitment, and we still continue to seek to live as an intercultural community. Despite the struggles we have, we engage the struggles, we learn them, and we try to learn from our experiences as well.
Yes, Chinyeaka, I have the impression from, listening to you that your congregation has nurturing a culture of interculturality. I want to thank all the participants who sent questions for Sister Chinyeaka. We tried to make like cluster of questions so she will be able to answer. And most of the preoccupations from the congregation is how we can live well together within the same community, within the same congregation. Sister, I want to read one quotation from your book, because I think it's here that the source of your book. The desire to be in communion with others, as well as a willingness and fear of the possibility of losing oneself in others, seem to coexist deeply in the human heart. the natural tendencies towards autonomy, which is believed to offer one some sense of guarantee of uniqueness and independence. The relational dilemma is found not only in individuals, but among groups too.
Yeah.
In a certain sense, individuals and different groups are equally struggling with self-centeredness and ambivalence in relationships. So sister, can you comment a little bit this core theme and explain us how why you decide to write this book?
Okay, thank you, Patricia. First of all, as I mentioned in the introduction of the book, this topic has been a lifelong topic of interest to me, as I was sharing there about my background. So it has always held me captive, just like I'm fascinated with languages, you know, how God is so creative in making us to be able to formulate ways of communicating with each other and make sense with each other in diversity, and we still understand each other. So this interest has been there all through my life. And that also influenced my writing during my long essay at the Gregorian when I was doing my licentiate. It was the topic of my long essay, this interculturality. And that time, I said to myself, if God still keeps me alive, if I live longer than this, sometime in the future, I would like to develop this more, maybe when I have gained more experience in life. So that interest has always been there. And then, in addition, after my training in the psychology at the Gregorian, I had the experience of working in the formation, accompanying young people in intercultural formation. And I was always fascinated how through our struggles, the struggles of coexisting as a different cultures, and then later on in life, when I meet our young ones, the level of bonding that I notice in them, the way that they're able to come together again, despite the struggles we had, because many times we had to spend a lot of time in intercultural sensitivity, intercultural competence, how do we know and how do we care to learn about others, where they come from, their practices, and also what influenced their actions. So later on in life, all that they learned through the initial formation kind of journeys and continues with them as they go on in life, later in life. And also another reason why I decided to write the book, to develop this book further, was the awareness of working with different groups, and as well as ours, seeing the groups, seeing the struggles that people face in trying to live interculturally, in trying to really love one another and serve the people that God has called us to serve. Because one thing I believe is that when we are able to work on our issues, especially around the cultural diversity, it can liberate a lot of energy in us to serve people. Because that proverb that charity begins at home is very real. If we go out and we love the people outside and we do great works, I think if we begin from our communities, really, that will make a more significant impact in the world outside. So sometimes too, I have worked with different groups, and sometimes when sisters or priests, for that matter, religious, share about the struggles they have in the community and how we can come to our community and half of the community are not happy because of misunderstandings, many times centered around cultural issues. So I feel that writing this book will be a contribution to religious life and to the whole church at large, so that, you know, something can happen for us. We can learn something that will help us to live as brothers and sisters, and to also show the world, witness to the world that it's possible to live together, to function together, to know one another, despite everything, no matter where we come from. But it's possible to do that, and there's a lot the world can learn from us. as religious, we have received so much. If you consider all the information we get, all the retreats that we have, all the input we have, and look at what we are engaging in at this time, I think there is so much we can offer the world. So all this put into consideration, and then there was a very strong push inside me to go on. It was like a call, go on and do this. So all this adding together, and I thank God that finally this book came to be. And my hope and desire is that there will be something in it that will touch somebody, some community somewhere, that will help us to live that call of Christ, that all may be one. That we start that practice from our own communities, and then from our communities, we can move out to the outer world, to the outside worlds, outside our communities, and make this dream of Jesus a reality in the world. It is possible, I believe it.
Chinyeaka, I'm sorry, your audio sometimes goes, and so I'm sorry for the translator and for the Italian-speaking people. We can't hear you very well, so it might be the connection.
I'm sorry about that.
We can't, no, don't worry, we cannot do miracles. That's what we are in the acceptance phase. So you have to accept the reality and the limitations of this reality. But I'm very happy that we are together in any case.
Yes.
Listening to you, I was reflecting, because we were very happy when you sent us your book at the USG, because we said, thanks be to God, an African perspective on interculturality. Because the impression is that we have a lot of books from European or Western perspective on interculturality. So that's why we were very thrilled to have this conversation with you. So can you tell us more about that? So is too strong the Western perspective on interculturality, which is the different with an African perspective, an Nigerian perspective of interculturality?
Thank you, Patricia. Well, I would honestly say that I do not have any cause or evidence to think that the present discussions or studies in interculturality is too Western oriented. I don't have enough evidence or proof to say that. But I would say, like, if you go through the book, I quoted a lot of sources from, the so-called Western people. But one thing is clear, one thing I believe is that human nature is fundamentally the same. We are really basically the same. But having said that, I would say that because of the way that people are socialized and the diverse ways that we can perceive or interpret actions, from our cultural backgrounds and the way we are raised, sometimes this can differ. And then even the way that we might treat issues, the style that we might use to look at issues or intercultural issues also, depending on how we are socialized and our backgrounds, can also have an influence. And that is why I believe that it's good that we hear more voices from different parts of the world, more voices around these intercultural issues. I believe that when we get more from different perspectives, I think it can enrich us. It can help us to learn more than just hearing from only very limited section of the body.
I like your positive perspective, but now we have to touch the conflict that we live and experience in the intercultural field. By the way, I just want to share with you loving greetings from Nigeria, from Sister Ifinai.
Okay, ciao.
They are listening to you. We are connected. So yes. Now I would like to enter more in the challenge of interculturality within religious life. One of the questions that is very often, that is very common, is this one. Country of foundation of a congregation and the countries of the new members. Both should create a new congregational culture. Can you tell us more about that? But before, I want to read a quotation from a sentence from your book.
Okay.
Presently, in some congregations, members from other cultures, which had been former mission lands, are getting elected as leaders. new foundations are also being established in other countries. For some of the international communities, this represents their first courageous experience of leaving their geographical and cultural boundaries. This is a quotation from New Wine and New Wineskins.
Wineskins, yeah.
So sisters, there is a conflict between the country, the cultural, the foundation of the congregation and the new members' culture, because geography of religious life is changing so much. Europe is not anymore in the center. So help us to understand.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you again. This is what I've kind of, just been alluding to, talking now. When we are open to listen to more voices, I think that we can gain a lot of wisdom. We can grow when we are able to, when we open up to hear other voices and newer members speaking and bringing the gifts that they have to add to the gifts that are already in the congregation. In the introduction somewhere, I made reference to our foundations, our roots that are solid, and the shoots springing up and blossoming because those roots are strong and firmly rooted and secure. So I think it's something that is good that if we open up our hearts to listen to the newer voices, to give opportunities for growth, for further growth among the newer members, because sometimes we can lose. Maybe there might be a lone voice or a few lone voices that are not in the majority, that are not, they're not, numerically in the majority. And I think that there is so much we can learn by just being open to listen, to hear, and to see the gifts that they can bring. And I believe that we can all sincerely search within these voices the traces of the gospel of Jesus Christ, because there is the seed of Christ in every culture. The thing is that for us to open our ears very well and listen. And I think one thing that is very important is the courage to trust the change that is happening. That in everything that is happening, God is present. And I believe also when the newer members are given more opportunities, more challenges to grow, to come of age, maybe instead of being looked upon as not mature enough yet. I think it will be a great gift to the congregation when we are able to do that, and if we're able to do that. So nevertheless, I personally believe that the congregational culture should essentially be the gospel. Love one another as I have loved you. That's for me, that's the reference I always go back to. Love one another. And it doesn't say love those who are from my own country or culture, but love one another as I have loved you. Treat another as you would like to be treated. How do I regard my sister or my brother? In the same way that I would like to be regarded myself. So I think for me, that's the new congregational culture, that's a culture of the gospel. Listening to every group, every new member, to find in that voice the traces of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I think that's how we can grow and mature. So sometimes when I hear people complain about newer members, I just say to myself, oh, we can miss the Spirit speaking here now to us. So I think we're invited to have that openness of heart and trust in the God of the journey. God is faithful. I don't know if I did justice to the question.
You are too good. No, it's interesting what you were saying from your perspective. At the same time, your comment reminds me what Anthony Giddens says clearly in his book, that building this new congregational culture is not natural. It's not something that you can do spontaneously. You have to work. Right. You have to walk a path. So the other question is, according to your experience, what are the skills at the personal level that we need to start and undertake this process of building a new inclusive congregational culture?
Okay. I think for me, the first thing there is, when I think about skills or whatever, like, I don't know whether I would call it skill than attitude. For me, the first thing there is being grounded in the gospel. Being grounded in the gospel, because that's what, for me, when I reflect on interculturality, it's really the gospel value. Love one another. Even our enemies, even Jesus said, love our enemies. But these are sisters and brothers with whom we are seeking to follow the Lord together. So for me, the first thing there is that being groundedness in the gospel. Love one another as I have loved you. Do to no one what you would not like done to you. These are wonderful guidelines in all human relations, and particularly in intercultural relationships. Secondly, I would think also, another element there is we are told to love others as we love ourselves. I think when people are able to accept self-acceptance, when I'm comfortable in my own self, in my own skin, and I am accepting of myself, I appreciate the gifts that God has created in me. When I'm able to do that, it just happens automatically that it flows out into the other. It's easier that way to accept other people when I'm comfortable with myself, when I have accepted myself, my culture, what has nurtured me and brought me to who I am now. The awareness of all that and the acceptance of them, I believe, helps to accept others. Because one thing I believe also is that when somebody is not comfortable with himself or herself and is not self-accepting, that's when people will have the tendency to put another person down in order to feel high or to feel better. But when one is comfortable and self-accepting, when one loves themselves as God has made them, there is no point or no need. The person doesn't have any need, again, to put anybody down in order to feel better about themselves. So I think this is one, for me, it is an element I find there, even in ordinary human relationships and then also in intercultural relations. That ability to accept the self in order to accept others fully. So because of time, limited time really, it's hard to go into more details. Maybe looking at other, what we call the other skills or what elements that, can help. But I have more details in the book there, like the section under formation, the formation for interculturality. I have some other suggestions there that,
That's
ways like that.
Pity that your book is just in Italian, in English, sorry. So
Yes,
there is
yeah.
not the Italian version, because it's really well done, not only because of the reflections that you can find also in other books, but she reinterpret the authors and the other scholars on this issue, but she also put on the book questions for personal and communitarian reflections, and also anecdotes that are very nice. Sister, I want to read a very short quotation from a story of Sister Penny, and I'm sure that most of the participants will feel echoes of this story.
Okay.
Sister Penny appears to be a generous sister. She's often available in community and willing to offer assistance whenever needed. In community, she's much appreciated by all. However, she tends to be quite sensitive, especially to certain members in her community. Her angry fits are usually directed towards sisters from a particular country where she had been on mission. In fact, community members are often puzzled about why such a pleasant and charming woman gives in to much thunderous outbursts. This has come to a point where the provincial asks Sister Penny to seek a help. Can you tell us something more? Can you comment this? I think that is a very common situation.
Well, because of limited time, I'll just do the much I can here. That story is, for me, it illustrates sometimes when maybe some past wounds or hurts can prevent us from living fully, from loving our brothers and sisters fully in the present. I think when one hasn't dealt with some, maybe some hurts or some difficulty that one experienced in the past, but he or she hasn't really attended to that wound that she is carrying, it can fester and affect a relationship with other people. So that's why I use that story to illustrate that. Because sometimes I've had the experience of somewhere, there was a general chapter in a congregation, diocesan congregation, and the news came of somebody being elected the superior general. And a priest, a missionary priest that was there, in company there said, "Oh, this tribe again." So in a way, that, like so those of us around, kind of picked it up that he must have some issue, some dislike or whatever issue with people of that particular tribe. So sometimes when we are not aware in ourselves of maybe some hurts or some ill feelings we might have about any particular tribe or ethnic group or race, that can affect relationships. So I think for me, it's very important that the inner work that we need to do to get in touch with ourselves, attend to whatever hurts we might be carrying. And sometimes what I find helpful is trying to get in touch with some of unhealed wounds I might have in terms of culture. Sometimes, somebody might have an experience with somebody from a particular culture, and then encountering others that are from there who have no knowledge of whatever experience, the person begins to react. So what I find helpful is for one to get in touch with some of these, when we have an extreme reaction towards somebody. Again, also to identify my own personal prejudices, what groups of people or nation or tribe or race do I have some bias or some prejudice about? Are there people that I regard as inferior to me or superior to me for whatever reasons? So these are some of the influences, some of the things that can affect people and diminish the quality of our relationship with others. And as I said, for me, charity begins at home. When we begin to practice these values in our communities, it definitely shows when we go out in ministry to other people. That witnessing of our community life, I believe that very strongly. So the whole thing about attending to our unhealed wounds, because sometimes some people, some religious, some sisters that have been on mission somewhere, you refer to a question, they talk about race, maybe some experience of racism they had, and anybody from that race or whatever, they have a reaction. And they poison the mind of other people, maybe other younger ones that are around, with negativity that hasn't been dealt with, or the wounds that hasn't been attended to. So I think, this is an important aspect of the work we can do to liberate ourselves to really live interculturally in an authentic way.
Thank you, Sister Chinyeaka. It's really profound what you were saying, and that makes me think that the mature person is able in a healthy life to name her feelings, her emotions, her prejudice. I have the impression that Sister Penny had some more profound problem that she was not able to name. So in this case, we need help outside. Sometimes it is for the person, sometimes it's for the community. It's the community who needs the help. to read or interpret what is really hidden, you know, in the profound.
Yeah.
I see people commenting in the chat, and we will give the opportunity to answer. But I have another question, sister, for you, and then we will have a 1 minute of break for also our translator.
Okay.
And the question is this one. I realize that many congregations ask us to help them to elaborate the people's intercultural wounds. You were mentioning that. We have congregations in Africa or in other parts in East Europe where sisters belong in the same community. They belong also to different and enemies tribes. So how we can help the community and the congregation to heal these wounds? I want just to read another. It's full. I'm excited of your book. So sorry, I cannot.
Thank you.
You know, it's just because it's very. It's normal. It's human. You know. So this is a phrase I think that a parent is giving to his child. You have to be taught before it's too late. You have to be taught before you are 5, 6, 7, or 8 to hate all the people your relatives hate.
Okay.
So what do you think, Sister Chinyeaka?
So what is the question?
We can heal, yeah. How can we heal?
Okay. Yeah. It still boils down to what I'm saying. When people are in touch with the wounds, you know, the problem is that when there is lack of awareness, that's where the problem is. And I think we can help one another because sometimes, you know, that person might not know, be aware of their prejudices. We all along the way, we pick up all these prejudices and stereotyping of people and all that, and inherit the enemies of our own ancestors. So I think sometimes, you know, like when people are not aware, that's more problematic. And that's where I believe that we can help each other. Like Sister Penny, people noticed and, you know, just began to challenge her, call her awareness to it. And also ourselves, as I had mentioned, the onus is on us also to do that inner work, awareness, you know, grow in awareness and see how do these influence us? How do these affect us? And I think when the awareness is there, that's the first step to begin. And also, I believe in our formation, we can do a lot, you know, like in our formation, we encourage people to do a lot of inner work. And that inner work is extended also to our intercultural relationships with one another. When we get in touch with ourselves, our history, the influences in our lives, the prejudices and the stereotyping that, or racism or tribalism that we inherit from our own parents or our own tribal people, our own ethnic groups. So I think the work information, there's a lot that can be done. They're helping people, even to give people tools on how to do that, on getting in touch with their inner struggles. But the first thing there is the conviction to have convinced formators, to have convinced religious and the leadership that are convinced that it's important to do this inner work, invest in the formation of the sisters and the brothers, the conference, to invest in that and also encourage them in supplying the tools. Because sometimes we might be afraid that it's a lot of trouble doing this, but ultimately, the energy and what resources we invest in the formation of our communities, they pay off finally in the end, both in our life, quality of our life together, as well as in our service to others. So, but that is real.
What struck me in your book this is really the last question, then I will leave you the room, the floor. What struck me in your book is that for you, and I totally believe in that, religious life can be a sign, a witness of good intercultural relationships.
Yes.
We started with the prayer with the Gospel of John, we are one. So can you say something more about that?
Okay.
Why religious life is a blessing for intercultural relationship?
Yes. So as I mentioned before, we called as religious, we have been given so much. We have a lot. Sometimes I think about all that we did in the formation, from the postulancy, even before postulancy, the novitiate, as a junior professed, and even in ongoing formation. We receive a lot. We have a lot of opportunities to do inner work, to do reflections and retreats. And there is so much we can offer the world. I would consider a lot of people who don't have all the opportunities we have at really growing, being people of the spirit-filled and spirit-led people. And the call that, when I was called to my congregation, I didn't know who I was going to meet there. I didn't know who else was called. But we came together, different backgrounds, different families, different ways and mentalities. And we all strive to live together with the same vision of being called by Christ to be a light to the world. And that's why I believe that there is a lot we can offer the world. When people are closing their borders, we religious are preaching interculturality. Let's all be one, as Jesus prayed. Sometimes when I look at countries, what religious communities do, with migrants or people who are stranded, it really warms my heart. And that is my dream, that the prayer of Jesus, it can happen. It is possible. And I always like to sound that note that even though it is possible, for us to bear in mind all the time that this is a process. It will never come. The time will never come when we will say that we don't have the struggles anymore. But for me, the most important thing there is that we engage in this. I look at the number participating in this and in this discussion, and it warms my heart, the level of interest. And for me, it is a good sign that we are all seeking to make this dream and prayer of Jesus a reality. So I think there is so much we can offer the world. And when I was on mission in Sierra Leone, some people used to ask. I was living in a community, intercultural community with European sisters, and the young people in the parish used to ask me, "Sister, how do you do this? I see you guys are always looking happy and laughing together. How do you this? How do you live together so peacefully?" So I think for this, it's something that is a gift we can offer the world, considering what we see in our world. When there are attacks on people because of race and all kinds of negative reactions to those different from us. But we see we instead are seeking to be together, to live together, to love one another. So I believe there is so much we can offer the world. And no matter how little we are able to contribute, with our little contributions, I think at the local levels, we are making some impact in our world and in our different societies. And that's why I believe that interculturality is really a blessing, even though there are struggles in it. But the struggles are worth out because of the blessings that they are part of. It's part of the whole thing.
Thank you, sister. Okay, I have other questions, but I want to. No.
Sorry, I see somebody there writing that is there an Italian version of the book?
That's right. So my suggestion now, if you agree, Sister Chinyeaka, is to take 1 minute of silence for our participants to focus and to write in the chat if they have questions. Okay. And then you have also some other questions pending from the participants that they sent through the Google form. So we can take the other side, the final side of our meeting to respond some specific questions. Okay, so we can take 1 minute of silence, let's say, so you can write and our translator can have a short rest.
Okay, thank you.
Gabriella, tu puoi vedere le domande nella chat, vero? Quelle in italiano, che forse la devi aprire sotto, c'è la possibilità di aprire la chat, così tu puoi...
Tu chiedi in pausa, tu dai una pausa a Gabriele. In pausa.
Le riesci a vedere le domande in italiano, così magari dopo io le leggo e tu possiamo tradurle in inglese. Non adesso, eh? Non ti sento io perché sto nell'inglese. Aspetta. Sì, ci sono delle domande, diciamo, quelle in italiano, io dopo le leggerò in italiano in modo tale che tu se vuoi dargli un'occhiata intanto. Ok. I'm sister, one sister has asked the floor and I'm looking for her to give her, here we go. Sister Nguyen, you have the floor.
Ma buonasera. Buonasera a voi tutte.
Good afternoon,
Sono molto
everybody.
contenta e
I'm
felice
very
di
happy.
poter partecipare
I'm
a questa
delighted
conferenza
to participate in this
sulla
conference, this webinar on
l'interculturalità,
interculturality.
Ti
perché
puoi
noi siamo...
presentare, cara?
Could you introduce yourself?
Scusatemi,
Well, yes, of
sono
course.
Suor Tian della
My name is
Congregazione
Sister
Suore
Tian
della Carità di Santa
of the
Giovanni da Touré.
the
Noi siamo
Sisters
in
of Charity
Brasile.
of
Siamo una
Santa
piccola
Gerenita
comunità
Touré.
in
We're a small
Brasile
community in
e
Brazil.
sono vietnamita d'origine e
I'm
francese
Vietnamese
adottata e
of
adesso sono
origin
in
and
Brasile.
French, adopted
La
as a
mia
French, and now I'm
grazie alla
living in
Suor
Brazil. Should like to thank Sister Chinyeaka. Chinyeaka, thank you very much.
di parlarci
Thank you for
sull'interculturalità e sono molto
talking
d'accordo
to
con
us
quel che
about
lei ha
interculturality. I
detto.
fully agreed on what
È
she
una
said.
sfida anche per noi come
It's a
suore della
challenge
carità
for us too, as
nel
Sisters
mondo
of
e in
Charity
particolare
in the
in
world,
Brasile.
and namely
Molte
in
differenti
Brazil.
questo
Why am I saying
perché noi
so?
siamo tre
Because
sorelle,
there are
una del
three
Chad,
sisters,
quindi continente africano,
one from
una
Chad,
del
from
Paraguay
Africa,
e
one from
una
Paraguay,
dell'America Latina,
Latin
e
America,
uno del Vietnam e del
and then
più
from Vietnam,
Europa, di Francia,
and
quindi
more from
l'Asia
Europe, because I'm
e
from France.
l'Europa.
So,
Quindi, e noi
so we
siamo
have
in
Asia, Europe,
America Latina
and
e in
Africa, and
Brasile. In
we're
Brasile
in Latin America
è
and
un'altra
in
lingua,
Brazil.
quindi
Brazil
molto
speaks
più
another
parlare
language,
una
so
lingua
we
comune, il
have to
brasileiro.
speak
È
the
difficile per
common
noi
language, the
di
Brazilian
raggiungere
language, and
a
it
una
is
lingua comune.
difficult
Per
for us to use a
capirci
common language and
intenderci
to get to know each
non è
other
facile.
and to get to
Però
understand
per
each
grazia
other.
di
It's
Dio
not easy,
possiamo
but by the grace of God,
vive nella
we
fraternità e
can live
cerchiamo
in
anche
fraternity, in
di
brotherhood, and we try and
di dare una vera testimonianza di vita
bear true
religiosa
witness of the
del
religious
sistema
life
brasileiro. E non è
in
facile.
Brazil,
Però
and it's not
ciò che
easy.
io
It's not that easy.
vorrei
But what I
condividere
would
con
like
voi
to
è
share with
anche
you
una domanda
is also, and I
come
also have a question, is the fact that it is not easy. When you said there's a need to accept oneself, it's personal work and then community work. It's a challenge for each one of us to take up personally and in the community. And this is not easy because there are conflicts, as you said. There are personal conflicts and conflicts from Africa, from France, from Europe, from Asia, and from Latin America. Now, this personal work, if cannot do this at first, then community life becomes difficult. And with humbleness, with humility, we have to try and do a community work in the community, and this is yet another challenge for us to take up. It's not easy when there's no common language, and it's difficult for us to understand each other because we speak different languages. Thank you very much, dear. Sorry for interrupting. So I have a question. How can we do this work without putting labels on the countries from where we come? So thank you very much, and I'm very happy to see you online. Well, I think that also Giovanna had asked for the floor. Mother Giovanna?
Per favore, chiudete I microfoni.
You have to mute your mics, please.
Non ha chiesto la parola, va bene.
She was not asking for the floor. Sorry about that.
I will move in English again. And here we have some comments. So Sister Chinyeaka, I will read it for you so you can decide what you want to share. And I think it's interesting, the question about the spirituality of interculturality. And let me check okay. Mary Pat asks, can you speak about what formators need to be looking for in a candidate, novice, temporary professed, in order to begin to see the woman's capacity to grow in interculturality? I want to read the questions in Italian that were, okay. In Italian now. Appartengo ad una congregazione di origine europea.
To a European a congregation of European origin, but which has always been intercultural, and the greatest challenge maybe has always been the change in the paradigm of the mission, from the fact of we have always done like that to it can be a new way of doing things. Now, striking a balance between tradition and novelty and newness. Second question in Italian, and I will be translating it into English for you. In your opinion, what is the importance of knowing the language of the founder or founders for the new members coming from other cultures in order to guarantee genuine interpretation of the charism and hence for its for applying it in the new cultures?
Un'altra domanda in italiano.
Then I have another question in Italian. In your experience, what dynamics should be implemented in intercultural and intergenerational communities in order to be a significant presence on the territory at a local level?
The last one in English, and then you have the flow, Sister Chinyeaka. Thank you very much for sharing with us. How do we bring changes in community that we all need to learn one common language that brings us together so that we can understand each other without saying this is the language of the congregation because it's where the congregation started?
Many questions. Where do I begin now? There were some that I was trying to respond, typing the response as they were coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Madam Grande Jose Cambio. Okay, well, I respond to this one now. Appartengo ad una congregazione di origine europea. Questo che guardo adesso. Si è sempre fatto così, può esistere una maniera.
Things have always been done like that. Is there a way of striking a balance between tradition?
I think it's always a struggle, like as I mentioned in the introduction, awareness of the roots, the acceptance of the roots that are there, and the new springs, the new shoots springing up. I think there's always that struggle to keep a balance between the roots, the origin that is there, and the newness that is coming in. And I believe every community will have to deal with that struggle. How do we strike a balance, between what had been, this is the way we had always done it, and then in these present times, the changing demographics or new ideas coming. How can we have a balance and still not lose the charism of the congregation? I think for me, the basic thing there, the very important thing there is the core of the charism of the congregation. And as I mentioned before also, whatever that is new, the new influences that are coming or the new changes, are there the gospel values contained in them? Are they in line with the charism of the congregation? Or is it coming to destroy what is there already instead of building it up? I think that's an element there that there is need always to keep discerning what the Spirit is saying. That will be my short and quick answer to that. Conoscenza di lingua. A suo parere, qual è l'importanza della conoscenza della lingua? Yeah, that's one I said that it is important, like if one is in a cultural congregation, there is a gain or benefit in knowing the language of the founder or foundress, because when we read the original writings of the congregation of the founders. I can't hear you.
Sister Chinyeaka is a little bit poor, the connect. Just a second so we can listen to you. We were lucky.
Okay.
We cannot complain. We were lucky. So yeah, try now.
Okay, so I was saying in the question about the importance of knowledge of the language of the founder or foundress. I think I will be fully in support of that for an intercultural congregation. I think that's the value. Some people have it already, that any new members coming in, they learn the language of the founder, because then I think it is more beneficial. It is a gift that will enrich them instead of diminishing. And that will help them also to understand in the original language the charisma or the spirit of the founder or the foundress. So I don't think it's a burden on people to do that, on new members to do that. Ok, the question here is, secondo la sua esperienza, che dinamica si devono implementare nella comunità interculturale e intergenerazionale per essere presenza significativa? Okay. This is a question that is big. The time is so limited, but I want to comment that the whole element of intergenerational culture is an area that I'm hoping to explore in the second edition of the book, when I've been working on the second edition. In fact, already I'm working on it, because already I have received questions around this particular question from different angles. So that's the much I can do. I wouldn't have enough time to respond, give a more detailed response to that. But the reality of intergenerational gap or generation gap in communities, because the new generation has a different culture from past generations. You know, people can come from the same country or the same culture, but because of the generation, like the cyber age generation now, their mentality or the way they're looking at life and interpreting life differs a lot from generations before. So it's an area that we can develop more and look at how we can incorporate that into the dynamics of interculturality or intercultural living in our communities. Then there's a question here. Maybe I take one of the English ones from Mary Pat. I see here.
Yeah, about the formators.
Yes. The qualities to look for. Let me see. Can you speak about what formators need to be looking for in a candidate, novice, temporary prof in order to begin to see a woman's capacity to grow in interculturality? Well, that's a big question too. But one of the things that come to my mind now is people's ability, flexibility, people's ability to adapt. And sorry, can you hear me? I just everything
Yes,
is so
yes,
silent
very well.
now. Yeah, somebody that has that quality of flexibility to adapt, and also somebody who is open to working with or living with those from other cultures. For example, like in past experience working with people, I met a young woman who said to me point blank that she was not willing to live or work outside Nigeria. You know, in the interview, she would like to belong to a group where everybody from there is, everybody in her community is from the same place for her. So that willingness also, and we see it in some little ways, you know, how people are able to accommodate, how do people insist that things have to be their own way, the way they are used to. Also, that's a very good indicator. So once you see the openness and flexibility in somebody, I think formation can do a lot to help. But once there's that block, and one is not open, one is not willing to let a difference in, then there might be a difficulty or struggle in accepting to live interculturally.
Thank you, sister. Thank you very much. I hope you deserve a digital applause.
Thank you.
We cannot do anything more. We cannot touch each other. So we can just put in contact our hearts and souls. Thank you very much. I hope that all the participants, we were a lot of people, more than 100 connected, but there are people who are connecting in more than one. So we are very happy. You know that for UIG is very important to talk about interculturality. So we will have more webinars on this issue, and we will invite you, Sister Chinyeaka, again once you have the second edition of the book.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to close our. I don't know if you have a final comment, sister. We are going to close. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. As I was saying that I have got some questions. You know, some people have asked me, is there Italian version of this book or French version? So I just want to throw it out. If there is any community that you know, you have people that polyglots and multilingual that would like to translate the book, I'll be very, very delighted. I think there's interest in some other you know, language groups. So if that can happen, I will really be very grateful if somebody can take it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Chinyeaka, and I think it's really worth it. And for the English-speaking people, where they can find your book?
Okay, the books are in Pauline bookshops in Nigeria, in Kenya, South Africa, and where else? And then in Rome here, via the Mascherino, the Pauline bookshop here. And there are copies in at the UISG. There are copies there now with the formation people. And then in Nigeria and Ireland, Holy Rosary communities in Nigeria and Ireland, as well as in Kenya also. The books are available there. And also on Amazon.
Amazon, yeah.
Amazon, yes, yeah. It's also on Amazon.
But don't buy now, It's not time to buy now because
we wait
it's
for
dangerous. Thank you, sister. I just want to highlight to comments that are very nice. Let me check if I can find it again. Okay, Sister Dolores says in Italian, noi da qui vi abbiamo seguito in 25.
From here, we've followed you in 25 from 10 different nationalities. And another congregation also writes, Sister Paola says, there are 5 different cultures together here, and it was very positive for us to have this witness.
Thank you very much to all of you. I just want to thank you again, Sister Chinyeaka.
And I want to thank everybody from my heart. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you to all the participants, and thank you to Florence for helping us.
And Gabriela,
our translator, the bridge. I just want to share with you 1 second my screen, because to share with you the next UISG events. The first one will be, I don't know why I have this, okay, will be Saturday for an online reflection on the spirituality of integral ecology after Ferida Mastonia. The retreat will be online, like this meeting will be in English and in Italian. It's 2 hours prayer online. And it's really a time of contemplation, of reflection. It's not time for cognitive inputs. It's more a time of prayer and listening. The second new event will be April the 1st, and will be with our Sister Marianne Logri, who has been helping us a lot with USG on the issue of burnout. And on April the 1st, she will talk on how to manage better stress and anxiety in these uncertain times. It will be 1 hour conversation, and will be in English and in Italian again. I hope that Spanish-speaking people won't complain, because we will have other webinars in Spanish and other languages too. Okay? Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your patience for technical problem. And have a nice afternoon or morning. It depends where you are, or night. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
I just want to add, I would like to add one thing. If during the translation, it was the original was mixing with the translator, it's because you don't have the last version of Zoom. So please download the last version. You go to the web page of Zoom and you download the last version, and you will not be disturbed anymore between the original and the translation. You will be able to mute the original and listen only the translation.
Thank you, Flo. You are our angel, technical angel. Thank you, everybody, and keep united in prayer for all the people who are suffering for the coronavirus, okay?
Keep safe, keep well. Thank you.
Thank you, sister.
Thank you too. Thank you. We're all united in this suffering at the present time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye. Bye.
Grazie,
thank you
Gabriella.
All. Prego. Grazie a tutti. Grazie.
Basta di tradurre, Gabriella. Puoi riposare adesso.
Grazie mille, Gabriella. Florence, merci beaucoup.
Thank you. D'accord. Sì, grazie. Thank you to you.
Thank you so much.
Sister Chinyeaka, if some sister asks for your email, may I give it to them in case they want to contact you for further reflection or a special conversation, okay?
Yes, no problem. Okay. Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye all.
Can you put me host?
A te?
Yeah.
Che non sei più host adesso? Aspetta, io non ho. Senti Flo, puoi stoppare il recording?